All right, and welcome back, listeners, to PW Grocers Environmental Echo. I'm Paul Boyce, CEO and president of PW Grocer and the host of the podcast. This is part two of a two-part podcast series with our guest, Brian Tiemann, of CEO and founder of BGT Consulting, which is based in West Hampton. And these guys are great. They deliver a variety of environmental-related services. We've worked with them over the years, and we're back to follow up on our discussion from last month. You've often cited preventative or proactive approaches towards environmental issues rather than being reactive, right? So a lot of our fertigation is, sort of after the fact, right? The stuff's already in there, now we got to take it out, right? Which is great, and it's working. But can you give me some examples of maybe some preventative or proactive approaches that you've come across or cited in the past?
Yeah, I always reference that old thing, reduce, reuse, recycle, that triangle. And they're all great, but there's one that's better than the other, and it's reduce. So in all regards, reduction is always best, in my opinion, in terms of what we create in terms of waste. And this goes a little bit beyond water and wastewater, but in terms of what we need to recycle, and you just mentioned proactive or preventative approaches, which is when you reduce, you don't have to recycle. And recycling's great, and it's crazy for someone to hear me say, like, recycling's okay. But the energy needed for it and the sustainability of it is the problem. The most sustainable way to approach things is to reduce and not create the waste in the first place, whether it's water or, paper goods or things like that. So, and I feel like that needs to come from more of a educational and grassroots and organic approach. I'm not a big fan of addressing that in a regulatory manner, even though I'm in a position of government, such as bans. Years ago, Southampton Town banned the use of single-use plastic bags. And they had to define what single use meant. And they defined that by the thickness. So the thickness of these bags determined whether it was single use or not. So what happened was a lot of establishments got thicker bags.
You saw that coming, right?
Right?
Oh gosh, yeah.
And I said, no, it's not the way to go about it. But when the straws, when that
plastic straws,
the plastic straw ban came, I remember going into an establishment in West Hampton Beach, and they switched over to biodegradable straws. And I said to them, I was like, that they're not banned here yet in the village. And they said, no, we know. But a lot of people came in and spoke up and said, we'd really love it if you had biodegradable straws. So they made the switch. And that was way more valuable, in my opinion, than any ban. And I apply that to everything across the board, in terms of, environmental impact, to understand why we need to reduce these things and change our way and our behaviors. So that's my roundabout answer.
I wish you could come up, and I'm not anti-balloon or anything, but I am an avid surfer, and on the beach all the time, and every summer, my wife and I can't tell you how many of those like Mylar balloons we pick up and bring home and end up throwing out. It's just, I wish there was a biodegradable balloon or something. It's just, I cannot. I mean, you guys have seen it yourselves. It's astounding how much of that stuff ends up in the ocean, washes up on the beach, or whatever. The sea life gets caught up and it eats it. Something to think about, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a great example too, is those balloons. And I do consider myself more of a realist than an idealist. And as an idealist, I would say, well, we shouldn't have those balloons. But understanding, getting people to understand the impact of them, I find is far more important and effective than a ban. People find their ways around bans and they get angry about them and don't really adhere to them. But if people understand the real issue at hand, I feel that that's much more impactful.
Well, it's not just a sort of a sub-regional thing, like with a balloon, somebody could release it in Connecticut and it ends up over here in New York or Long Island, and it's just, it's got to be more global than just, thinking here right in Suffolk County.
Yeah, but getting to the young generations, I see it with my kids. Every time I go to the beach, I'm usually picking up between 10 and 20 of them. And so, my kids, I've been doing it with my kids for such a long time that, that's how they start to, next generation, that's how they start to catch on. And they'll start to change the behavior, and then with their friends, and that's because we're not going to be able to affect. Schools are great, and they're going to teach kids, some of these methods, but it's really up to parents and communities to kind of spread these ideas and methods, and just kind of go through it with your children, so they could kind of teach their friends and grow outward like that. Because I agree, the bans, certain people are just going to get upset by it and break the rules just because they don't want to follow the rule. And so I almost feel like things like that, balloons have reduced over the past 20 to 30 years on the beach, even though you still see too many. But
Yeah, I feel like in this highly charged political climate too, you need to get people to understand the reasons behind things and get people on all sides of the political aisle to understand them. It's not balloons. It's not a political issue. It's not a matter of my personal rights to have a balloon and throw it up in the air. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the impact of them and these other things that we're talking about, pollution, polluting groundwater, et cetera, understanding the issue is more important. And you could get people from all sides of the political aisles to understand it and believe in it and support it. It's really, it's not rocket science.
Well, let me throw out a question to both you and Chris. Specific to the east end of Long Island, what do you guys see as, besides the wastewater and the sewering, what are some of the more pressing, environmental issues facing the region?
I think it's a lot having to do with housing and which leads into development, which leads into what's an appropriate amount of development in certain communities. And then the other big issue is just waste. Again, it's an island, and the two biggest issues, environmental issues that Long Island has, groundwater quality and solid waste management, which gets into the reduce. Reduce should be the first straw, but we're running out of space, running out of landfill space, running out of ashfill space, running out of options to put things on the road to truck them off.
Yeah,
putting things on train is limited. So. The island has some severe issues that are really going to hit a point in about 3 or 4 years when Brookhaven landfill shuts down. 110 facility only has a certain number of years left for C&D.
C&D, yep.
So it's really, to me, that's a big education issue that really needs to get through to future generations about trying to figure out ways to reduce, first of all, and then getting to reuse and recycling, because there's just no room to put it in the ground anymore. Not on this island, and the shipping cost to get things off the island is going to be growing exponentially. So those are my biggest issues I see. So the housing, which has to do with getting into development and getting affordable housing, can it be done in an environmentally responsible way? Like we said, if you could do it proactively rather than reactively, that's the way to go and approach it.
I agree 100% with everything Chris just said. Those are really the challenges. To expand on that, the approach to those challenges is really, really challenging, because it's striking a balance between a few different things that we're juggling. And this is the case anywhere in the world, but on the East End in particular, we have to balance quality of life and preserving the culture and the integrity of the area environmentally, but also culturally. And then we're also trying to build economy here. So, we have certain downtowns where we want businesses to thrive more. So you're encouraging development, but what kind of development is that? Is it sustainable? And then the circle completes when we're talking about housing, and we need people to live out here, but is it realistic to keep people out here? to work in these places that are providing the economy the stimulus that it needs, while also maintaining the character of these communities. So it's a really complicated circle, which goes beyond environment, but it all comes back to that. And what it comes down to, as we were just talking about in terms of proactive and preventative approaches, is planning and understanding what we want to see in terms of development and what we want to see on the East End, and how you need that goal in order to determine how you get to it. It's not piecemeal.
So Brian and Chris, great response there. I agree with everything you guys just said, and it's tough. We got a lot of work here on Long Island to do, but it can be done. We've got some good leadership now. Hopefully we've got good government in place, and we can get things, as I said, done in a timely manner, because the clock's ticking, as Chris pointed out. But just quick, maybe a little more on the personal level with our guest today. Brian, how did you get interested in environmental protection issues? I can give you for me as an environmental guy, I grew up around the water. Here on Long Island, it's hard not to. It has always fascinated me, almost every aspect of it, from working with it, playing with it, drinking it. It still does today. I love the math, the science behind it, and I recognize it's a resource here on Long Island that has to be protected, and that's what really drew me to this field. What about you?
My dad. My dad has been, my mentor, my hero, my whole life. When I was going to sleep, when I was 7, 8 years old, he read me National Geographic, not, Pat the Bunny or whatever.
Sure.
And when I was growing up, our weekend activities was to go hiking and look for snakes, look for turtles. And that excitement just instilled a deep appreciation for nature and fascination with nature. And so that was really the base. And going forward, I maintain that interest and passion for nature, natural world. And going into college, I knew that I wanted to learn more about the environment and nature, but didn't know what I wanted to do as a career with it. That came second. But I still continued to study that passion, and figured out along the way how to apply it to, the real world, maintain that passion, but also live a life.
Fantastic. Where'd you go to school?
I went to 4 schools in 4 years.
All right.
It's very.
Where'd you get your diploma? How's that sound?
Very telling of my life and my personality. I graduated Southampton, LIU.
All right. Yeah. Now part of Stony Brook.
Yeah. I was there towards the end of its existence as LIU, but I went to Hobart and William Smith my first year, Northeastern my second, University of Rhode Island my third, and then Southampton fourth.
A true Rhodes Scholar here.
Yeah, I'm a drifter.
That's all right. Hey, you got a good education. You love talking about this stuff. So, trying to wrap up here for you today, and we appreciate your time. What are your plans going forward regarding involvement in government? We were talking about this before the podcast started. Maybe you want to share that with our listeners, or is that still top secret? Or
No, it's I've dipped in and out of politics. I used to be a Southampton town trustee.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, in 2007, I was very young, and my passion for the waters led me into that, and I was involved in local politics and always wanted to make a difference and have a say in things. So I did that for a little while, and then kind of, dipped out a little bit, then got into the village government. So I see my future in government as dipping in and out. No real plans. I don't have aspirations for higher level government.
I was going to say, you're going to stay local? You want to get more county, state?
I mean, who would elect me? Come on, take a look. So yeah, I don't have any real long-term goals, but I do know for a fact that I always want to be involved in some way, shape, or form.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that's what we had. But before we go, Chris, Brian, any parting thoughts or comments, topics we didn't touch on that you guys think are important to get out to the listeners today?
Did we want to hit just on the wind turbines at all?
Absolutely.
Just the status of wind turbines, and with the CLCPA, and what is your feeling? I know a number of projects have been slated, one or two slowed down because of COVID and supply chain issues, and what do you see happening in the next few years with the wind industry off of Long Island, off Block Island, things like that?
Well, kind of as I just said about me dipping in and out of politics, I see there are a lot of waves, no pun intended, to the energy industry. And part of that is a matter of, administrations and party politics. But with energy, I've always been a big believer in the fact that we need multiple approaches and solutions to our energy needs. There's no one clear answer. I've been very involved in the offshore wind power industry with Ørsted, and very, very proud to have been part of the team that got the first commercial scale offshore wind project in the United States operational. But as I always say, do I think it's the answer? Of course not. It's part of the solution, but I say the word part. I think wind energy, offshore and onshore, must be part of the future of our energy challenges. But there's no one solution, and we need to be very open-minded about all the approaches.
I mean, what do you think now? We've got we've got some current projects underway. I know my brother's working on a project to bring the power cable up, the William Floyd and stuff.
Oh, Sunrise Wind, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is that still a go? And we're gonna get through this with the current administration that just got sworn in yesterday?
I believe so. And don't forget the power of local government with that too. I understand, that things could be squashed from up above, but again, we've talked about our county executive, Ed Romaine, former supervisor of Brookhaven, who was a champion with that project, Sunrise Wind, that you just referenced.
Yeah.
And I was very involved in that as well. And I'm very passionate about that project. We will make sure that goes through and continues.
Fantastic, because a lot of time, effort, and money have already been put into it. So
Yep.
I'd hate to see it not come to fruition.
Yes. Same here. I have a personal interest in it.
Fantastic. All right. Any other last thoughts or comments before we wrap up for the afternoon, guys?
Nothing for me. Thank you very much, Brian, for coming and participating. Really, really great topic, and great having you here. And great having you as a partner of PW Grosser, who we can reach out to. So I appreciate the friendship.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the friendship too. You guys, PW Grosser is phenomenal group, and you've done amazing things, and I'm proud to have been part of a lot of things with you.
Well, we appreciate it, and we appreciate your time today, Brian. It was a really good discussion. I hope our listeners enjoyed it as well. Just to wrap up, again, Brian Tiemann, CEO and the founder of BGT Consulting out of West Hampton, again, environmental company that we've had the privilege to work with over the years, and will hopefully in the future the same, and Chris Omskog, our Senior VP and Director of our Business Development stuff now, and I am Paul Boyce, CEO and President of PW Grosser and your host of the Environmental Echo. And I do want to thank everyone for joining in and listening today. And again, just to reiterate, if you want to get a hold of us, that's that website again, www.pwgrosser.com/podcast. And I really hope you guys all enjoyed the topic and the guests, and we'll see you next month.